Okay guys, so welcome back again. So in this video, we would be using a product called STYTCH to use email passcode authentication inside our React application with Express.js as the backend framework. Though you can use STYTCH in a couple of different programming languages like Ruby or Python, but I am focusing on Node.js here. And the beauty of this STYTCH product is this, that they provide you with several authentication methods. Like we have email magic links, we have SMS passcodes, WhatsApp passcodes, OAuth logins, and they also have session management. So we would also be doing session management with STYTCH itself. So we don't have to use any kind of JWT or something like that. So for this video, what I'm focusing on is this, that I would be sending one-time passcodes on email to the user's email, and then we would be creating an account if the account is not created. So the setup is pretty simple using the Node.js STYTCH SDK. And the only thing you need to do is you need to sign up for STYTCH. So once you sign up to STYTCH, you would be seeing your dashboard something like this, that you would be having a dashboard something like this. And there you can have different projects for different applications. So as you can see here, that I've created a project here called my first project, which is by default created by STYTCH itself. And then I've created a separate project here called YouTube tutorial, which is the project for this tutorial itself. And in the similar way, you can have as many projects inside one STYTCH dashboard so that you can manage different applications with authentication. So if we have a look at the YouTube tutorial dashboard, we see that the dashboard is pretty simple. There is no clutter inside here. And the only thing we are interested in for this application is the API keys, because the OAuth thing, we would be looking into that in the next video, maybe for Google OAuth. But for this video, we would be sticking to the API keys here. So let me go to the API keys here. So here we see that we have a couple of different keys here. That is the project ID, which is used in the backend. The secret here, that is the backend secret key for this project ID. And then we have the public tokens, which can be used client side. So if we have a basic look at the skeleton of the React application that we are going to create. So this is the application that or the sketch or the layout that I made for the React application. So here we have 4 routes here. That is the home route. So we are on the home route. We have the login route. So I would come to this login route in a moment, but we have a login route here, and then we have a profile page in which we would be displaying the credentials or the details of the user who is currently signed in. And then we have a button here that is called logout. And if we click here, it simply displays an alert as of now. So if we go to the login route, we see that we have a couple of things here, or we have 2 components here that are rendered simultaneously. So we see that we have a component here where the user would need to provide his email, and then he would click this button that is request OTP. And that one-time password would be sent to his mail. And then what the user would need to do is that he needs to enter that OTP that is sent to his email inside this input box. And then he simply needs to click on verify. So once he clicks on verify, the OTP would be verified on the backend. And then what would happen is this, that a session would be created or a session would be maintained between the client application and the backend code. And that session token would be coming from the STYTCH SDKs. Because STYTCH also has a session management thing, so we do not have to worry about the JWTs or something like that. So without wasting any time, let's see the basic skeleton of the applications that I've created for this video. So this is the React application, and you can differentiate between the React application and the backend code by this color here. That is the cyan color here for the front-end React application, and this is the backend Node.js application with the green color here. So these are the basic skeletons of the application that I created here. And for the React application, we see that we have not installed any separate dependency. Only the dependency that is installed here inside the React application is the Axios library to make API calls to our backend server. And if we have a look at the backend code, we see that this is our backend application. And the only dependencies installed here are the cookie parser, the cors, the .env to read the env variables, the express package because we are going to use Express.js. Then we have HTTP errors, and then we have Morgan, which is a simple logging library. And if you simply want to create an Express application quickly, then you can simply install a package called Express Draft, and it is super simple to use to quickly scaffold the Express application. And if we have a look at the .env file, we see that we only have a single port here or single environment variable, that is port, which makes our application runs on port 4000. And if we have a look at the app.js file, it is pretty simple here. We simply imported Express, and then we simply scaffolded an Express application, and we only have an index route with simply a response back with a message here. That is awesome, it works. And then we have a typical 404 handler as well as the error handler here. And then we are simply listening on this port here, that is the port 4000 that is coming from the environment variable. And now what I'll do, I'll install the STYTCH SDK on the backend. So let me open a terminal here and let me do npm I stitch STYTCH. Just remember the extra T between YCH. So it is STYTCH. So let me install it, and it would take a couple of seconds or so to install it. So that it has been installed. So let me clear out the screen. And now if we have a look at the package.json file, we see that we have this package installed that is called Stitch. So now let me go to the app.js file and let me initialize the client from this Stitch package. So here what I'll do, I'll simply require the Stitch from Stitch package. So const Stitch equal to require Stitch like this. And now what we can do, we can initialize the client here, that is const client, that is the Stitch client. So we can say client equal to new stitch.client like this. And here we need to pass in a couple of things. So we need to pass in the project ID. That would be coming from the environment variable in a moment. And then we need to pass in the secret for the project. That is this project ID and secret I'm talking about. So if we go here, we see that inside this project here, we see that inside this YouTube tutorial project, we see that we have a project ID and we have the secret here. So we would be copying and pasting these project ID and secrets inside our environment variables. So let me copy this project ID from here and let me paste it here in my environment variable. So let me call it project underscore ID would be equal to this project ID. And here we can simply provide in the project secret also. So secret equal to the secret. So let me copy the secret from here and let me paste it here. So project secret would be this secret here. And let me save the env file. And now what I'll do, I'll go to my app.js file. And instead of this thing, what I can say process.env.project ID like this. And then for the secret, I can do the same thing. That is process.env.project secret like this. And since we are in testing purposes, we need to provide in some Stitch environment variables. So what we can do, we can pass in an env field here, and here we can simply say stitch.envs.test. And if you are using this application in a live environment, what you can do, you can simply provide in live here instead of test. But since we are in demo purposes, so I need to provide here test like this. So now let me save this application or this file, app.js file. And now what I'll do, I'll create a couple of different routes here inside my application. So let me minimize the terminal here. So here what I'll do, I'll create a couple of routes here. That is, I want to create here two routes. One is to send the OTP and the second one is to verify the OTP. So let me create a route here, app.post/send email like this. And then we have the request response and next function here. So let me copy and paste that piece of code from here. That is this callback here. And here what we can do, we can use this client here. That is this client that we just initialized. And here what we can do, we can extract the email from the request.body thing, because eventually we would be posting an email to this endpoint here, that is send email. So we can extract the email from the request.body thing. So we can say const email would be equal to rec.body like this. And again, this body is coming from the client application, that is the React applications, which we are eventually going to do so. But first, let me set up the backend so that we can work with our frontend application in a breeze or with a breeze. And then what we can do, we can create an object of params that can be sent to the Stitch endpoint. So const params equal to email, because we are using email passcode. So we can say email like this. And since we are using modern JavaScript, so we can simply use this thing here, that is email would be this email. And then what we can do, we can use this client that is initialized here. So we would be using this client. So we can say client.otps.email, because we are using email. If you were using something else, then you could have used SMS or WhatsApp, but we are using email. So we are using email.send. And here we need to provide in params like this. So we can simply say params here. We do not need to destructure that. So params like this. But if you want to create a user and then send them a passcode, though, so what you can do, instead of sending using this endpoint that is send, we can use a different endpoint, and that is login or create. So which would create a user and then send them a passcode. And here we need to pass in the same data, that is params here. And then since this is a promise, so what we can say const response equal to await, like this. So we can use async and await here. And here, and since we are using async and await, what we can do, we can wrap each and everything inside a try and catch block like this. And then we can try for each and everything for all the promises. And if there is an error, we can simply say next with the error as the only parameter. And this next error would be handled by our error handler here. So now let's have a look at this response object, because we need one thing from this response object that is required on the front end side. So what we can do, we can have a look at the response object in the documentation here. So we see that when we create, when we hit this login or create endpoint, we are getting this response back here. That is with the status code. That is with the status code, the request ID, the user ID. That is the user ID of the user that is created inside your Stitch application. That is inside the Stitch project, and then the email ID. And this email ID is required on the front end side. Or it is not required on the front end side, but this email ID is used to validate the OTP for which the OTP has been sent to. That is, for which email the OTP has been sent to is recognized by this email ID. So we would be sending back this email ID to the client side, to the client application, so that we can again make a post request from the client application with this email ID, so that this email ID can be used to verify the OTP code. So enough talking, let's get back to work. So what I'll do, I'll simply send back this response to the client. So let me simply do res.json response like this. And now we can make a post request to the send email endpoint, and we can get back a response with the email ID thing. So, and then we need to create one more route. So let me copy each and every bit of this code from here, and let me change something here. So let me remove each and everything from here like this. And then this endpoint would be called verify OTP. We would be coming to this endpoint, that is post verify OTP endpoint, after we implemented the send email endpoint inside our front-end React application. So let's go to our front-end React application. So if we have a look at the front-end React application, we see that every route is open here, and we see this thing on the login page. And what we want to do is this, that firstly, we only want to see this piece of code, or this block of UI, that is to request the OTP. And when the user has entered his email here and he clicked here request OTP, and he gets back a response from the backend server, only then we should be displaying him this UI element here, that is enter your OTP. So that is pretty simple to do. So if we go back to our React application, and if we go to the login page here, and we see that inside this login page, we have a layout that simply includes the navigation bar. So if we have a look here for the layout, we see that we have a header with the navigation bar, and then we are simply rendering out the children here. So that's what is all inside the layout.jsx file. And we have three pages here, that is homepage.jsx, login page.jsx, and profile page.jsx. And they are pretty simple pages here. If we have a look at the app.js file, it is a pretty simple app.js file, and I have installed this dependency called React Router DOM, which is simply routing my request to each of the individual pages, that is the home page, login page, profile page, with these parts. So there is nothing fancy about this React Router DOM. And if you don't know that how to work with React Router DOM, that you can watch my video that is linked above. And whatever class names you see here, they are only for styling purposes to make this application look beautiful. And inside this login page, we see that we have a couple of different forms here. That is form 1, that is this form. And then we have another form that is called this form, or that is this form here. So what we wanted to do, that initially we only wanted to see this form here, that is login or sign up, and this form would be shown later. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a state variable here. So I can simply say use state. So, or we can use the user state snippet. And here we can simply say method ID like this. And the initial state of this method ID would be an empty string. And let me import use state from React. And I would let you know that why I'm calling this method ID in a moment, and you would get to know it by yourself in a moment. So let's save this. And now what we want to do, that is we want to display this form in case we do not have a method ID. So what we can say, we can simply come here, and here we can simply wrap it like this. That is if not method ID Then we want to display this form here, that is the form here to request the OTP. And if we have the method ID, then we want to display this form here, that is to verify the OTP form. So here we can again make use of this thing here, that is if we have a method ID, then we want to display this form here. So let me do it like this. And if we go back to our application and if we reload the page, we see that the site cannot be reached because the application might not be started. So if you open the terminal and let me clear out the screen and let me simply do yarn start, or you can do npm start, whatever you wish to do. And we see that this time we only see this thing here, that is please use your email to get the OTP to log in or sign up. So if we put here our email and if we click here request OTP, then we are simply reloading the page because the form is not handled. So let's go here and let me minimize the terminal here. And here what we can do, we can have an on submit event like this, and on submit would be called on submit like this. And then let me create a function here, that is function, or let me call it differently. So let me simply say that request OTP on email, or this is too long function name, so let me call it request OTP. And inside the on submit function or inside the on submit handler, I would provide in request OTP. And here we have the typical event, and here we can simply say e dot prevent default, simply like this, and it is all old plain React stuff. And now I want to keep a track of this email that is inputted inside this input box. So for that, I'm going to use a state variable called email. So I can say use state email, set email. Initially it would be null, and I want to make this input a controlled event, controlled element. So I can say value would be equal to email. And then we have the on change event. So on change, we have this thing here. We have the event. And then what we can do, we can simply say set email would be e.target.value like this. Everything is pretty simple here till now. And now what we can do here, we can simply make an alert statement, that is, or let me check it like this. So if not email, then we simply want to return, that is, we do not want to proceed ahead. Otherwise, what we need to do, we can simply make an alert as of now so that we can see that, or we can check that if everything is working fine. We can simply alert with an email here. So let me save this and let me go back here. And if I simply put request here, nothing happens here. And if I enter my email address here, and if I simply click here request OTP, we see that we are getting back an email here. So this is the email we want to send back to our backend server. So let me do that. And for that, I have installed this dependency. If I've not told you before, that is, I've installed this Axios library. So we are going to use Axios. So let me go to the login page, and here what we can do, instead of alerting with an email, I can simply say axios.post http:// localhost port 4000, because remember our backend application is running on port 4000, or it is not yet running. So let me start the backend application itself. So npm run dev, and it starts this application on port 4000, as you can see here. So the backend application is started here, and we are going to hit this endpoint, that is send email. So let me copy this endpoint. So here we can say / send email, and then we need to pass in the data or the request body, and the request body would be email. So we can pass in the email here like this. And that is what is expected on the backend thing here, because the request.body must contain the email thing here. So let me go here. So since we want to use async and await here, or let me use the simple plain then in caches here. So then we have the response would be equal to console.log response.data, because inside response.data would be the actual data that is coming from the backend side, and then we can cache the error if there is any, and we can simply log in the error. So console.log error.message like this. So let me save this, and if everything went well, we would be seeing this response.data thing here. So let me see if we can make a request. So let me click here, that is request OTP. Let me open my tools here, that is DevTools, and let me open the console. Let me increase the font size. Let's click on request OTP. So let's wait for a couple of seconds and we see that we get back an object here that has an email ID, that has a request ID, that has a status code, that has a users created, and that has a user ID. So since we use the login or create endpoint, so therefore the user is automatically created, but it is not verified. If you would have used the send endpoint, that is, let me show it to you. That is, here we have simply used this endpoint, that is login or create. If we would have used the send endpoint, then the user would not have been created. So that is the difference between login or create and send, and I prefer to use login or create. And now we see that we have these things here. So what we are interested here is this, that we are interested in this email ID thing, because this is a method ID in our case. So let me copy this email ID. And what I'll do, I'll go back to my application or the React application. And here when we get back a data here or the response, we want to set the method ID to be the email ID that is coming in the response. So we can say set method ID would be this response dot data dot email ID like this. So that this method ID would contain this email ID here. That is this email ID. And then as soon as we do that, we would be displaying our verify OTP form. So let me do that. Or nothing has to be done to show the verify OTP form, because it has already been implemented here, because it is shown when there is a method ID. And let me handle also this case here. That is, we also have a button here that says change email. That is in case if you entered a wrong email or you wanted to change an email. So then what we want to do, we want to have an on-click event handler on this button here. So here we can simply say set method ID to be an empty string like this, so that we can see the request OTP form again. So let's do that. So now what I'll do, I'll simply click again, request OTP, and this time as soon as I request OTP, we will be seeing the verify OTP form. So let me do that. So we clicked here and we see that enter your OTP form is displayed here, and we need to enter the OTP here, and we can enter only the numbers here, and that is because of only the CSS that I implemented here. So if we click on change email, we can see that we are back here. So we need to verify the OTP. So before doing that on the front end side, let me handle the backend side. So let's go to a backend thing here. And here this time what we'll do, we'll extract two things from the front end. That is the OTP or the code. So let me call it code, because that is what I am going to use on the front end as a state variable also. So here what I want to destructure from the response.body thing or from the request.body thing is the method ID. So method underscore ID and the code from request.body that is coming from the client application. And then we would use the same client, that is the same client that is initialized here, that is a STYTCH client, and I would be making a request. So let me do it and it would make more sense. So we can say const, not conster, but response equal to await client dot OTPs dot authenticate. And here we need to pass in some data here, that is the body of this request. And here we need to pass in the method ID, and the method ID would be this method ID. And then we need to pass in the code, that is the one-time verification code that is sent to the email. And here we can simply pass in code. And again, since we are using modern JS, so we can simply omit the second thing here, because the key and value names are same like this. And now what we can do, we can simply log in the console.log response here like this, because this is not the response which you want to send to the user here. We would be establishing a session here in a moment. So for now, let me simply send back a JSON object here. So rest.json. And here we can simply say message would be okay like this. So let me save this. So if everything worked well, we should be getting a message of okay. Otherwise, we should be getting an error back. So let me see if I can handle this. So this OTP container has an input element that has an ID of OTP and a name of OTP. And we want to create a state variable called OTP, or let's say code, which would be handled by that input element. So you would say use a state code, set code. Initially, it would be an empty string like this. And then we would be doing the same thing, that is we want to make this element a input element a controlled input. So we can do value would be code, and then on change would be equal to e here, that is the event. So set code would be e dot target dot value like this. And then we want to handle this form here. So let me create an event handler, that is the on submit. So here we can simply say verify OTP like this, and let me create this function at the top of this file or somewhere here. So let me create a function here. So let me scroll down a bit. So function verify OTP like this, and here we have the typical event for form submission, and we can simply prevent the default behavior. And again, we would be checking that if not method ID, just to make it sure that we have a method ID, and if not code, then we simply want to return from here. Otherwise, we want to make a post request to our endpoint. So we can do it very easily. So we can say axios.post, and let me copy this URL from here like this. And let me copy the URL for the backend thing, that is verify OTP. So let me paste it here. And then we need to send in the data or the request body, and that request body would be method ID and code. And that's why I prefer to use code here. And now we have a then here. So then we have a response. Here we can simply console.log response.data like this dot catch. Error would be console.log error.message like this. So let me save this, and if everything went well, we should be seeing an error if we entered a wrong OTP and a message of OK if we entered a correct OTP. So let's go back. And for you guys that who might be wondering that where the OTPs are coming and if they are coming or not, let me open my Gmail account here. And if we see here that we got a couple of login requests from YouTube tutorial, that is the project that we created, and we requested 2 OTPs, and we have both the OTPs here. That is your login request to YouTube channel and your login request to YouTube tutorial. And if we open this thing here, that we see that we have a login code here, that is this code, and this code expires in 2 minutes. Though we can change the validity of this code from, I guess that the maximum time is 10 minutes. You can check out the documentation, but by default it is 2 minutes. So let me do it one more time. That is, let me request the OTP once again. So let me request the OTP. Let me close this, or let me open, let it be open here. So let me request the OTP here, and in a moment we should be getting a OTP here. So let me go to my email here. So we see that we have a OTP here or a passcode here, and this is 435717. So let's enter that. So 435, or what it was, 717. So let me enter 771. That is a wrong OTP, and let's see that what error do we get here. So let me clear out the console. So let me click on verify OTP, and we see that we are getting an error here, that is request failed with status code 500. And that is pretty true because the OTP was wrong. And if you wanted to handle this more gracefully, you can do that in your backend application, but I'm not going to do that. So if we open here, we see that we have a post request which throws an error of 500. So let me try to put in the correct OTP this time, that is 435717. So 435717, and let me click on verify. And most likely we see that we get back a message of OK here, which means that our authentication is successful. And now, as soon as the authentication is successful, and again, if I wanted to use this OTP once again, we won't be able to do so. So just watch out this time. So if I click on verify here, we should be getting that request failed with status code 500. So which means that these OTPs can only be used on only for a single time. And if we go to the user dashboard here on the STYTCH platform, and if we click on this user management here, we see that we have these users here that is registered for our application or for this project inside STYTCH. So that's all about this platform thing. So let's get back to work. So now since we have a message of OK, what we wanted to do is this, that we wanted to establish a session on the client side, on the client application by setting a cookie on the front-end client application from our backend Express application. And the validity of that cookie would be depending on the length of the session that we request from the STYTCH SDKs. So let me do it. It is pretty simple to do. And for this, we are going to use signed cookies so that your cookies are more secure. And we would be using HTTP only cookies, and we would be using also secure cookies. So we are going to use a couple of different things so that our session is established between your backend application and your client application in the most secure way that is possible. So let's go back to our application, that is our backend application. So we see that we have installed this package, that is cookie parser here somewhere. So we have installed this cookie parser here, and now we want to use this cookie parser inside our app.js file to set a cookie on the client side. So we can say app.use, and here we can simply say cookie parser. But before using cookie parser, we need to require cookie parser. So const cookie parser equal to require cookie parser like this. And now we can say app.use cookie parser, and here we can pass in a secret. If you don't want to pass in a secret, then your cookies would not be signed. But since I want my cookies to be signed, so what I can do, I need to provide in some secret here. So I can say some secret value. If you want to know that how to generate a secret value, there's a trick here. That is, so here what I can do, I can stop my application. I can issue this command, that is open SSL rand hyphen base 64, and we want this random value to be of 32 characters long. So we see that we issued this command and we got this secret here. So what we can do, we can use the secret inside our env variables. So I can create this thing here, that is cookie secret would be equal to this value. And again, I can use this command as in how many times I want to do, and it would eventually give me different secrets or different base 64 string representation of this random 32 characters. So let me start the application once again so that it is always started in the background, and let me stop it because I need to use this environment variable inside my app.js file. So here, instead of passing in this some secret value like this, what I can do, I can say process.env.cookieSecret like this. And now what I can do, I can start my application so that this environment variable is loaded. And now let me minimize this thing here. And now you might be wondering that how to get a session from this authenticate endpoint. It is pretty simple to do. The only thing you need to do while verifying this authentication code, you need to simply pass in some extra parameters, and that is the session duration here. So let me pass in the session duration in minutes here. So we want our session to be valid for 15 days. So I can say 15 times 24 hours and 60 minutes. That is, I want this session token to be valid for 15 days, 24 hours and 60 minutes. So I guess that my mathematics is right. And this time what would happen is this, that here we would be getting a response that would be different, and it would automatically include the session token. So if I can open my console here and if I can scroll up, we see that when we initially authenticated the OTP from this endpoint, we only get this method ID, request ID, and the session was null. But this time, since we are providing in the session duration, so we would be getting something related to the session also inside the response here. So we would be seeing that in a moment. So let me minimize the terminal once again. And now let me save this application, and I'll go back to my React application and I'll click here change email so that we can follow this path again. So let me click on request OTP, and we may be getting the OTP again in a moment on our email. So let me refresh. Oh, so we got one, and this time it is 020815. So let me copy it and let me paste it here. Let me click on verify OTP, and we should be getting a message of OK. So let's go back to the backend, and this is not the backend here. So this is the backend here. And if we scroll up, we see that this time we got a couple of different things. That is, this time the session is not null. We got the session here. It has the expire start date. It has the last access time. It has the session ID. It has the started at, and we have a session token. So this is the session token that you want to store on the client side as a cookie or inside a cookie so that you can validate this session using the again using the STYTCH endpoint. So we would be using cookie, we would be storing a cookie on the client side. So let me minimize this. And if we go back to our application, and let me show you that what all cookies do we have inside our application. So currently, if we have a look here, so we see a different cookies here, and they are from my previous application on localhost port 3000. So let me minimize it. So what I'll do, I'll clear out each and every cookie from here. So let me do clear. So this time we see that we do not have any cookie inside our localhost port 3000. So let me refresh it, and we see that we do not have any cookie here, and we want to set a cookie here. So let's do that. So let's go back to our backend application. And now if we see that we have this object here, and we want to simply manage this token inside a cookie. So inside this response, which we are logging here, we can get the session token from this response. So we can simply copy the session token from here, and we can destructure it. So const session token would be equal to response like this. And then maybe you also need to have a user ID that can be sent as a JSON object for your front-end application in case you want to use it. So we can use it like this, and then we can save it. Here what we can do, we can simply send back the user ID here like this. And now we want to store the session token in a cookie. So what we can do, we can say res.cookie. And here we need to pass in the name of the cookie. So we can simply say STYTCH cookie or STYTCH token. And this can be any name here. I'm simply calling it STYTCH token. It can be any name. And here we need to pass in the value of this token, and the token value would be the session token. And then we can provide in some options here. So we want this cookie to be sent to be valid only for HTTP. That is, it should not be read by client side. So we can simply pass in HTTP only to be true. We can pass the cookie to be secure. So for that, what I can do, I can simply say process.env.nodeEnv should be equal to production. That is, if it is in production, make this secure. And then we need to pass signed to be true. That is, sign this cookie and send it. So this is where this thing comes into effect. That is the cookie secret here, since we are using signed cookies here. And now let me save the application, and that's all what you need to do here. And let's see that how do we get the session token inside the cookie. So let's go back to our front-end application. So let me request the OTP once again, and let me go back to my email here. So let me refresh it. And we have this login request. So let me copy this OTP, let me paste it, and we see that we do not have a cookie here. So let's verify this OTP, and we would be seeing a cookie set here. And we see that we do not have a cookie. So let's fix this issue. So let's go back to our client application, to our backend application. And here in the course thing here, we can provide in some options here. So for the origin, I can provide an http /localhost port 3000, because that is where the React application works. And then we can accept the methods here. So the methods would be post, because I'm enabling all the methods here, post, get, put, patch, and delete. So let me do that. So delete like this, and let me make them uppercase. So let me transform them to uppercase. And then we have credentials here to be true. And now one last thing which we want to do after setting of these origin methods and credentials is to set the max age of this cookie, because we did not provide in the max age for this cookie, and our session duration is for these many minutes. So we can provide in a max age according to that session duration. So we can say max age would be these many minutes. So let me copy it and let me paste it, times 60 seconds times 1000 milliseconds, because max age is in milliseconds. So now let me save this piece of code from here. And if everything went well, we need to make one more change on the front-end application. So where we are making a post request to this verify endpoint, which is ultimately setting the cookie in the browser, we need to pass here one more option, and that is with credentials to be true. like this. So let's save this, and if everything went well, we should be setting up our cookie in no time. So let me reload the page here. So watch that currently we do not have a cookie. So let me request the OTP here. So let me request the OTP, and let's go back to our browser here. That is our Gmail window. So let's refresh, and we have this OTP. So let me copy this OTP. Let me paste it here, and let's keep our fingers crossed, and let's see that our cookie should be set here. So we see that we have a cookie here, and the cookie value is this value. That is a signed cookie here. And we see that this cookie expires on 31st of March, that is 15 days from now. And the size, we are not interested. It is an HTTP only cookie, and it is not secure because the environment is development. And this is how we can set a cookie here. And now what we can do, we can send this cookie for each and every request to our authenticated routes, and that is pretty simple to do. So let's see that how do we handle authentication or our authenticated API client to query our backend code by using this token here or by using this cookie here. So that is pretty simple to do. So what we want to do, we want to use this profile endpoint, that is this profile page, and we want to send this cookie along with the request so that we can get back the details of the user. So let's go back to our application here, and let's go to the profile page.jsx file. And before doing before calling that endpoint from our backend, that is to get the details of the user, we need to handle the middleware, or we need to create a middleware to verify this cookie here. That is this STYTCH token cookie. So for that, what I am going to do, I am going to create a function here that would be a middleware function. So let me create this middleware function somewhere here, though it should be created separately outside this file. But let me create this function here, that is verify token, like this. And this has a request, response, and next thing, or the function has a signature of request, response, next, like this. And now inside this verify token function, what we can do, we can again use try and catch, because we are eventually going to call an API endpoint, that is the client endpoint of the STYTCH SDK. So if there is an error, we can simply say next with the error as the only parameter, because then what would happen is this, that using this middleware, if we call it next with the error, then the error would be handled by this error handler. Otherwise, what we can say, we can say const token equal to request dot signed cookies. I guess that it is like this only, and then we need to pass in the name of the cookie, and in our case the name of the cookie is this STYTCH token. So let me copy this and let me paste it here. And for now, what we can do, we can simply say console dot or what we can do, we can use this token that is stored inside this STYTCH token to verify it from the client SDK. And this in short is a session token. So let me rename this token to be session token, like this. And here we can say const response equal to await client dot sessions dot authenticate, and here we can pass in the session token, and the session let me speak it clearly, and the session token is this session token, like this. And since we are using await here, so we need to make this function as an async function, like this. And then we can simply log in the response, so console.log response. Otherwise, we can simply say next. And in case this thing fails, that is this authenticate fails, if the session token is not valid, then we would be coming to this catch block. And here, instead of simply sending in the error, what we can do, we can simply use the HTTP errors package to send an unauthorized response, that is 403 or 401. We can say new create error dot unauthorized, like this. And now let me save it. And now if we need to use this verify token as a middleware in whatever route we want to protect, so let me create another route here. So let me create a route here, that is app.post / profile, not fragile, but profile. And here we have the same signature as this async thing. So let me copy and paste it here. And here, what we want to do, we want to use this middleware as a middleware, that is a verify token as a middleware. So we can put it in between before the handling of the request. And here we again want to use try and catch. So try catch. And if there is an error, we can simply next the error. Otherwise, what we want to do, we want to get the details of the user. So what we have here, so let me simply say res.json for now, or let me do it message to be okay for now. And now let's see that what is coming back here in response, so that we can attach it to the request object. So let me save it. And let's try to hit this profile route. So let me go here to our front-end application to the profile page. And as soon as this profile page loads, so what we want to have is that we want to use the use effect snippet. So use effect snippet. And here we want to run this effect on component mount, and we need to import this use effect from React. And here we can say axios.post, and here we can pass in the thing here, that is the route. So localhost port 3000 or no 4000, because 4000 is the backend server. So profile, and here, or let me make that route as a get route, because it is not necessary to use it as a post route. So let me make it a get route here. And here I can say app.get, and then here we can pass in some option, that is with credentials to be true, that is send this cookie that is saved inside the browser, that is this cookie, with this request, that is with this request. So therefore we need to pass in with credentials to be true. And then we have the response. So we have the response, so we can console.log the response.data. And if we have an error, we can simply catch the error. So we can see console.log the error.message like this. So let's save this. Let's go back and let's try to reload the page. And let me open the console here. So let's try to, we see that we get a 401 unauthorized like this. And that is because we might not be able to find the cookie from this thing here, that is from this request.signed cookies. So let me open it. Okay, so I guess that to access this STYTCH token cookie, we do not need to use parentheses here. We need to use the box brackets. So that was a mistake here. So we need to use the box brackets here. And let me also log in the session token here. That is, let's see that what we are getting here. So let me save it here. If I go back to my application and if we reload the page, so let's see that, yep. So this time we got back the session token here. And let me see the front end code first. So we see that we got back message okay here. So previously the only problem was that we were getting unauthorized because we were not accessing the STYTCH token using the signed to keys thing properly, but now it is fixed here. And now we see that inside the response from this authenticate thing, we get back this data here. That is the request ID, the session token, and inside the session, we have the user ID. So let's get the user and we can send this user to the front end. So what we can do, we can simply say rec.user_id underscore ID equal to, we are simply attaching this user ID to the request.user_id would be equal to response.session.user_id like this. And now inside this profile thing, we can access this user ID using the request object. So here we can say const user equal to await client.users.get, and here we need to pass in the user ID. So we can simply say rec.user_id because that is what is attached here inside this request object, and we are getting user here. And finally what we can do, we can simply say response.json would be user here like this. And let me save this and let me go back to our front-end application and let me reload the page. And this time we should be sending the user, we should be seeing the user here, and we see the users here. That is this user here. So we have the user ID, we have the emails here, that is this email here, and the email ID here. And this is how you can use this session token to be on the backend server with that is to protect your routes. And now let's see that how do we log out the user. That is, we want to delete this cookie, that is this STYTCH token from the browser, and we also want to revoke the session that is created, because that session is valid until and unless it is revoked. So let's create a route here inside our backend application, that is logout route. So let me create a route here somewhere. So just after the profile, let me create a route here, that is app.delete /logout. And here we have the typical async function, that is the request, response, and next, like this. And here what we want to do, we want to try and catch again. So if there is an error, we can simply throw the error, or we can simply call next with the error. And here we can simply say const, not like this, so const response equal to await. Firstly, what we need to have here, we need to get the cookie here, that is the STYTCH token. So we can use this thing here, that is request.sign cookies, to get the session token. So we can get the session token here from the cookie when we call the logout route. And then what we can do, we can simply say await client.sessions.revoke, and here we can simply pass in the data, and that data can contain a session ID or a session token. So let me pass in the session token here, and that session token is session token. So again, we can simply remove this thing from here. And finally, we also want to delete the cookie from the browser. So we can simply say res.clear cookie, and here we need to pass in the name of the cookie. So what we can do, let me copy the name of the cookie from here, so that this is the cookie name. So let me copy it, let me paste it here. And here you can optionally pass in the options that were used previously, but I'm not going to do so. In case we need it, we may need to do so. So, and finally, we can simply say res.send status code, status code would be 204, and then simply call send on this. And this is not status code, it is send status, like this. So let's save this. And now let me handle that logout button. So let's go to our layout file, and here inside the header, we have this button here that says logout, and we have a logout function here. So finally here what we can do, we can simply say axios.post, not post but delete, because that was a delete route /logout. And here we can simply say with credentials to be true to send in the cookie. And then we have a response, and we can simply log in the response. So response.data, and if we have an error, so we can simply say error. So console.log error.message, like this. So let's save it, and let's go here. So currently we see that we have this token here, and let me click on logout now, and most likely we should be deleting this cookie here, and we may need to reload the page. Let me click here. The cookie is not cleared. So let's see that what is happening here. So let me open a terminal here. And we see that we are not hitting that route. And it is because we need to fix this logout route, because it should be on the backend server. So we can simply say http / localhost port 4000 / logout. So now let me save it, and let's go back to our application, and we have a cookie here. So let me click on logout, and we see that the cookie is cleared from here and the session is revoked also. So guys, this is all about this video using email passcodes with STYTCH. So if you have liked my video, do hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channel. So thank you, bye bye, tata, take care, and have a good day and have a great day.